All right, we are live. Welcome everybody to a special edition Chain Chatter. We usually do these on Wednesday at noon East, but we are here one day out from the TCY launch. So I've got Denny, aka Patriotsounds. How are you doing today?
Dude, I'm doing great, man. Very excited for tomorrow. Can't tell you how excited I
Yeah,
am.
yeah, I'm excited also. And you're obviously a big spokesperson in the space. I'm sure a lot of people recognize your voice from all the different X spaces that we do. In the community. So I'm very happy to have you on and excited to dive into TCY. One day out. And before we get into the TCY, Thorchain stuff, do you want to give us a little rundown of who you are and how you got into Thorchain?
Yeah, I'll try and make it brief. 2019, I discovered Thorchain. I was getting into crypto, so I'm not like a super OG in the crypto space. I fell in love with like the idea of like Bitcoin at the time because the problem with fiat and the modern economic doctrine. You know all the things, right? So fell in love with that, but realized, dude, this doesn't work. I mean, you can't really use it for that much stuff. And then I discovered Thorchain, and I've been hooked ever since. Shout out to Grassroots Crypto. He was the first introduction, breaking down all the technical stuff, and I'm ride or die now. I love this ecosystem, and yeah, that's it, man. And I educate, I moderate for Thorchain. I also do Maya protocol and teach people like about Mocha, and now I'm getting into Rujira, which is a lot to learn on that. I got a lot of work ahead of me to fully understand. So, but yeah, I just love teaching people about this stuff. So that's it. Short and
Yeah,
sweet.
yeah. And what kind of drew you into the space? What if you had to pick out, say, like one or two kind of key ideas that drew you specific? Because there's, getting into crypto, there's so many different routes you could have gone. What kind of drew you here specifically and kept you around?
Well, if you look throughout history, there is just the continuous problem of the state. And goes back thousands of years, okay? And of the emancipation of people. I mean, what's going on right now is the first time ever. This is a 0 to 1. So, like right now, you and me, Cal, we are living through something that has never been experienced in our species. It's quite extraordinary because beforehand, if you have a nation state and you have a people, they have to go in parallel. And the nation state typically, it will almost always controls the did I just flip myself? How did I do that?
I flipped you actually
Oh, okay.
because I was
Okay. I
I
was
was
like,
reading your shirt and I was like, because it was on a mirror
oh,
setting.
good job.
And I was like, we got
Anyway,
to get Thorchain going the right way for the for
dude,
the
I
camera.
thought it was magical, bro. I was getting really excited. But anyway, so yeah, nation state people, they go parallel, right? And the people are stuck. They're always stuck. But now, for the first time ever, we got this going on. We got this action, right? We got people now who are able to emancipate themselves from the state, from this nonsense that we're having to deal with. But in order to do that, you need to have a system where you can not only swap assets, which Thorchain does, but you also need like an entire ecosystem where you can use assets like Bitcoin for things that you can, do on centralized exchanges, which you're not really using Bitcoin, right? I mean, those kind of complicated. I'm trying to be superficial as possible, but this is literally make or break, I think, for society. And we really have an opportunity here to free the next two generations. And I am just so locked and ready to make this happen. There's a lot of things that have to go right. And I think we're doing them, bro. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, I agree, and I think I think the direction that everything's headed in is solving those problems. It's not necessarily as fast as we all want them to be, and but we are getting there. And the how I got into this space was obviously Bitcoin, and then Ethereum and tokenization kind of came out, and just usability of crypto has really been kind of a slow take. I had always kind of focused on that aspect, and then obviously with Bitcoin, like you've got all the freedom aspects, but then if we're all trading on Binance, that kind of takes away from the entire vision of it's decentralized money, and we can kind of free the world from a lot of these financial problems. So that's kind of my attraction to Thorchain and cross chain in general. um, so let's talk a little bit about TCY. So we've got today's May 4th, and TCY is supposed to launch tomorrow. So before we even get into that, I think there's kind of a little bit of breaking news, but I did see that JP and Alux were talking on X about seeding the liquidity pool for TCY. And there is a vote that's ongoing, for node operators. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Just because I think it's kind of, relevant to start with.
Yeah, we need more security in order to deploy the TCY. So there's technically a chance that it doesn't go live tomorrow, and that would be a little bit of a bummer, but it's not really that big of a deal. We'll just see how fast nodes vote. I'm thinking they will get it done. They're usually pretty quick about this because I know they've been looking forward to this moment. But yeah, there's there's a bit of a security deficit, and so when they get the Mimir that basically adds like 100% of the security via the depth of what's in Thorchain, then excuse me, then we should be good to go. So, but worst case, there might be a small delay, but hopefully that doesn't happen. But if it does, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and what is the security deficit about? Like, I think people would hear that and they'd be like, well, does that mean that Thorchain's not secure? Does it mean that TCY is not secure? What exactly does that mean?
It's funny you ask that because I think the main one of the big concerns that people have is that Thorchain is too defensive. Because right now, like how it works is that we need to have a certain amount of rune bonded via node operators and bond providers relative to the amount of assets that we can take in the pool. So why that's important is if, let's say you had a node operator that's malicious and was trying to steal, their bond is slashed more than the amount that they tried to steal, right? So it is economically irrational to try and steal from Thorchain. And this is a security posture that we've had since the very genesis of Thorchain. And I think it's paid dividends, not only just how robust Thorchain is, but also the type of node operators we attract, because people who would maybe want to steal from the pools are not interested in Thorchain because they realize it's kind of it's really hard to do, So yeah, that's basically it. Like the security model, and I think they're gonna change that. If you saw Alex, he's just like, yeah, since it's actually going to be a native asset on Thorchain, we don't have to do that. But these are just the quirks of doing Proposition 6 and basically taking Maya Protocol's code, which is a friendly fork of Thorchain, and bringing that over. I know, and I hope I'm not people. There's a lot to understand about that, but it's just like a little nuance that we have to fix. So we'll get it done.
Yeah, and it seems like a minor thing. So I think most people would see that and recognize that it's not like a there's no game changing things being modified. It's just kind of a just a small nuance. Yeah.
Right.
So if you actually a good question came in from Khan. If you had to sum up TCY in 3 chaotic words, what would they be? And I think that'd be another good segue to diving deeper into it.
3 chaotic words, man. Yield for. Look, I'm not this intelligent. Okay, you can't be throwing these like 3 words. I'm a very wordy person. Okay, that's
really like a puzzle.
Yeah, no, dude. There are things my brain does well, and there are things that my brain does not do well. Okay. Breaking anything down in Thorchain or TCY in 3 words would cause people to get confused. Listen, we had a design on Thorchain called Thorfi. And to walk it back a little bit, like Thorchain's main thing is we do swaps. We facilitate real layer 1 for real layer 1. This is not a bridge in the conventional sense. Like if you have what was called wormhole, like a bridge is like an application layer that seeks to achieve consensus on different layer 1s, right? And if you can trick that system, then you can have a terrible thing like wormhole. Okay, Thorchain's real layer 1 for real layer 1. Okay, and but that's only part of the equation. And Thorchain's always been interested in liberating people, and swapping assets is amazing 0 to 1, but we want people to be able to take out loans or deposit liquidity in or money markets or perps or whatever, right? Trade accounts. So we tried to make a design with Thorfi that was just not a good design. But thankfully, due to the numerous amounts of auditing we did of the code, we built it in a way that if it did fail, it didn't destroy the protocol. And I'm not going to lie, it got dicey there for a second. But this community is full of winners. And shout out to Alex from Maya Protocol, as you alluded to earlier. That guy, I love him to death. Great man.
Yeah. Yeah, super humble guy, and I had him on 2 or 3 weeks ago to talk about all this stuff, and he's a team player, and he loves the mission. So yeah,
I
he's
met him.
awesome.
I met him in real life twice, and I'm
Oh
telling you,
yeah,
the guy's legit. He is that. What you see is what you get. I've spent time in Colorado, Las Vegas with him, staying up late at the night. And that's one thing I want to encourage. I don't mean to distract from the topic, but if people
no, you're
hear,
good.
like, one thing you should do is meet people in real life. There is absolutely no, like, I think you're a cool guy and I love to meet you in real life, but there's only so much, bond that we can achieve by just looking at digital representations of each other, right? Like, meeting each other is so important, because when I hang out with Alex in Las Vegas and we're like smoking a cigar or like drinking, and we're talking about what we want to achieve and what we dream what will happen, and we're finishing each other's sentences, that's the type of human connection that is irreplaceable. And I think that's why Thorchain does so well, is because in the early days we didn't really know each other, but through all the battles and trials and tribulations, we have got this bond that's just, it's ironclad, man. It's great.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like a brotherhood. Like, when people go off to war and they develop
Yes.
a brotherhood with each other. Going through tough times, as a collective group is a lot different than just kind of skating by and being did like you said, like having digital relationships. I think that's a very good point.
Yes.
So you kind of talked a little bit about Thorfi, and I obviously when it came out originally, I was really excited. I thought, this is awesome. I've been a long time user of like MakerDAO and like various collateralized lending protocols. So obviously a huge fan of that in general. As we kind of progressed through it, and then we hit like January of this year, and then February. What were you thinking? As I think kind of like the first big turning point was the pause. So what were you thinking as that happened, and then some of the other events kind of unfolded?
A core first principle thing of Thorfi was you can never pause. Okay, you must never put fear in the market that people will not be able to close their loans. And then we had a pause. It was an admin Mimir, and it was unfortunately done at like 2 a.m. USA time, like my time zone was like 2 a.m. So a lot of the USA node operators were asleep. And it wasn't good, but it was reversed. I think it was like 3 or 4 hours later by other nodes. And by the way, before I go further, the admin Mimir no longer exists. It had its purpose, and it was a great tool back in the day when we were building Thorchain, but it's gone now.
Can you explain a little bit what the admin Mimir is for someone who
Yeah.
may have never heard that term?
In 2021, we released ChaosNet for Thorchain, and ChaosNet is mainnet. We just called it mainnet after an amount of time went by with no major like bugs or issues. And the admin Mimir is like an emergency red stop button. It can't really change value, like serious values on Thorchain. It's just like features. So like savers and swaps and various other primitives that are on Thorchain. If there's an issue, because it's new, right? Like you got to be able, like it's very easy to add a new part, a primitive to Thorchain that might result in a terrible bug. So you just having this big red emergency stop button is very important, and it was used very responsibly up until that time. Okay. So after that, though, the nodes reversed and things stabilized a little bit, but then Thorchain's price, Rune's price went down significantly, and the liability was greater than the depths of the pools. And so that is a very dangerous situation to be in. So the nodes decided to pause the features, which then started a whole other cacophony of drama, rightly so. And, a lot of people criticize our community for that. And we should, like, we have to own our mistakes. We tried to build something that emancipates the world. And, we said straight up, we might make mistakes, but again, we built in a way that we can disentangle. But that was the genesis of TCY, was to help make these people whole. And TCY, for those who don't know, is a revenue sharing token that so 10% of the protocol's revenue will be shared. And there's about 210 million tokens. I think I'm going off memory here. And that'll be distributed to only people who are affected by the default of Savers and Thorfi. So they get some redemption for their collateral. And then at $1 valuation, they will be, their value dollarized will be redeemed at the point of the block height that it was frozen. But if the price of BTC or ETH goes down, which it has, then they might only need 50 cents or 80 cents or whatever.
Right. So they, so there's 210 million TCY, because at the time, you know, because there was a snapshot that was taken, I think back in February. And at the time it was like $210 million was, you know, essentially frozen in ThorFi, and then said, okay, let's take a snapshot of the 210. And then each dollar gets, you know, claim dropped 1 TCY. And then, but at the time, I think, you know, ETH was significantly higher. Obviously, ETH hasn't performed super well. Bitcoin, I think, was slightly higher, maybe similar to the price it is now, after the last kind of crazy 10 days we've had. So, you know, at some point between, you know, TCY being at launch 10 cents, which is where it's going to launch, and $1, you know that every single ThorFi holder is made whole. And along the way, they're earning yield. So I guess as more time passes, you could look at it as the $1 figure actually drops. Is that right?
Yeah, it fluctuates. If you know, at the block height, it's a static $1, but contingent on where the Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever asset that you had, then yes, that amount will fluctuate, and people will liquidate at a point where they are comfortable or when they're made whole, but they have to, you know, they're going to have something they have to keep track of. But I'm really glad you mentioned this, because there's something I want to say right now. Very, very important, guys, is I want everyone to understand, please be mindful for scams. There's going to be a lot of scam attempts. Okay. Another thing too, I know a lot of people are very excited. We said this in the space yesterday. The pool depth will be very shallow. Okay. So do not try like 6-figure swaps or even 5-figure swaps. You might get absolutely wrecked. Okay. And arbitragers don't really have TCY. Like, it's going to be just the arbitrage is literally just going to be market behavior, because the only people who have TCY in the beginning are people who redeem when they connect their layer 1 address and get the amount that they're allocated, right? The asset. And so I don't know what's going to happen, but I foresee it's going to get pretty wild in the first moment. So just please be careful. Look out for scam attempts. Okay. Might be best if you just wait for a few days for it to settle down, or I don't know. You know what I mean? Just please be careful, and don't connect your wallet to a link unless you are absolutely sure it is. And we're going to have resources in Telegram. You'll see them on X. You can reach out to me personally if you want to. Just please be careful. I don't want you to come this far and get wrecked. That would just make me so sad. So
yeah, and I think that's a good thing to bring up too, because we should walk through a little bit of what's going to happen on launch day. So obviously the pool, you know, is attempting to be seeded. Trading is not going to be enabled right away. So I think the claim module will go live first for some period of time, and then trading will be enabled, right, at least from my understanding from ALUX. And then, like you said, there's no arbitrage because there's no listings of TCY anywhere other than the TCY rune pool. So you have that one pool that people can trade in and out of. So it's either people that have bought TCY, you know, beforehand, you know, ever since the pool went live. So if you go like 2 days later, it's just people who bought it or people who claimed it. So there's no like, you know, there's no order book on Binance and then arbitragers are bringing TCY back and forth. So I do think there's going to be a ton of volatility, as like, I think a lot of people are going to buy TCY early because they're going to want to speculate on it. And then you're going to have every day more and more people claiming it. So it is going to be a wild time. And I think it's important to make another note of, you know, being really careful when you claim your TCY, because what you're essentially doing is you're connecting your wallet. So if you're a ThorFi holder, you're essentially connecting, say, your Bitcoin wallet, for example, or your ETH wallet. And then to claim your TCY, you're actually kind of manually inputting your Thorchain address in order to receive the TCY. So if you know, either input the wrong address or, you know, you go to the wrong website and you give the wrong, you know, Thorchain address, you're going to lose your TCY. So I think it's really important to know, you know, what website you're going to. You should probably, if you want to prepare for the launch, you know which Thorchain wallet you're going to connect and want to receive your TCY to. And then obviously before confirming any transactions, make sure that your Thorchain address is correct. You know, the time tested story in crypto is that you did the wrong address and you lost all your crypto. So don't do that for the TCY launch. Are there any other big security measures that you would recommend? You know, let's say for, the one group of people who are going to be claiming TCY and then the other group of people who are going to be buying and speculating on it?
Security measures, well, man, that's hard. I mean, listen, people really have to use your brain. I think most people who are going to get TCY, I would say they're usually pretty smart people. You are your own best defense. Okay, like I've seen people drown in a puddle. I mean, some people are so dumb that they can't save. And I don't want to sound mean or anything like that, but literally this is an IQ thing. Okay, and do not let your emotions control your actions. Okay, you just please use your logical part of use your prefrontal cortex. Don't use your amygdala. Just take your time and just do it correctly. Okay, I know maybe some people are thinking, man, if I get some real quick and buy some and it'll shoot up and then I can flip it and do all, and like if you go down that path, I I don't know. You're going to be competing with bots, by the way. Okay, so I don't recommend it unless you really know what you're doing. And even really sophisticated actors are going to be challenged by other sophisticated actors. So honestly, I'm just going to stay away from the pool myself. Just please be careful. And I'm glad you said all that because due diligence, your own thing. Like there's already tons of scam attempts. There's tons of impersonators of me and other moderators and influential members of the community. There's already been fake interfaces made. Okay. Just go to trusted sources. You can the TC Thorchain X account, Telegram, me directly. We will make sure you go to the right place. Be careful, please.
Yeah, I think a big statement that Alux made was don't rush. There is literally no rush, especially if you're a claimer. There's no decay curve. Like if you claim a day later, if you claim 5 days later, if you claim 10 days later or a month later, there's literally no reason to rush. And rushing is what will probably get you into the most trouble. So just take your time and be very careful. What do you? Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. It was designed like that on purpose. No rush on purpose. We want to make sure because if you might miss out on a day's worth of yield, it's inconsequential. I promise. But go ahead.
Yeah. No, I mean a day's worth of yield, 2 days worth of yield. Like it's
nothing.
It's much better to miss out on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days of yield than to like literally make a mistake and lose everything. And this is decentralized technology. There's nobody that can save you. Another good tagline in crypto. What is your opinion on Thorchain volume? I don't know if you've run any math or maybe seen other people that have on Thorchain volume and speculation around TCY. I know a lot of people are looking at it as like kind of like a PE ratio. Have you looked into that at all? And what is your general opinion of it?
Well, that's the interesting question because it's very hard to calculate the potential success of Thorchain. But if we nail what we're trying to achieve, I think the potential will be absolutely mind-blowing. I can't model it. I don't know how to. It's just because if you look at ThorFi, despite it not working out, the demand was incredible. Absolutely incredible. We had a cap on the amount of rune that could be burned and the amount of liquidity that could be deposited, right? And it was achieved, I think, in less than 2 days. Wild. And the amount of people that knew of this protocol was very small. I mean, how many people truly understand the nuances of any particular ecosystem, right? It's like thousands of people. It's not tens of thousands. It's not millions. So the demand is crazy. We have so many things coming. I'm sure you're familiar with Rujira, which is basically what we're trying to build. But the issue that we had is that we leveraged our base layer to do it. And that's what got us in trouble, right? With Rujira, it's an app layer that doesn't threaten the base layer. And it fixes the problem that Rujira, which was previously known as Kujira, had. They needed liquidity. So they had to try to do all these tricks to get liquidity so they can do what they could do, right? And, they made a mistake like we did. It's hard, very hard. But us merging, coming together is going to be one of the most synergistic relationships. Maybe it's hard. I don't want to oversell it, right? People look at me and say, well, yeah, you're going to say these things. It just blows my mind. I try to be as honest as I possibly can. Okay. So what is the demand for people to have non-KYC access to all the features of a centralized exchange? What is the demand of that? Massive, absolutely massive. And so what is
I'd say at least the demand of what is already on centralized exchanges, right?
Yeah. Yeah, look at Binance. I mean, it's an unbelievable numbers, right? So if you have that going on, that's just all swap volume that doesn't exist right now. We haven't made a penny in swap volume from Rujira. It's an entirely new application layer with thousands of committed people that we've joined forces with. Incredible. And then you have new things, right? Like, I think you said you're a business owner. I think I've heard you say, you've sold products and services before,
Yep.
right? There's a whole other primitive, Mocha, which is basically a point of sale application. Like, if you're a hot dog stand, I want a hot dog. Okay, I have I don't know, I have an asset on a crypto wallet. And then how do we settle? Like, you want USDC, Arbitrum, whatever, random asset. I have Litecoin. You can use the centralized liquidity pools of Maya Protocol and Thorchain and others to be the settlement layer. So, okay, every swap right now, let me just back up here. Every swap right now that happens on Thorchain are just people who want to swap assets. That's it. That's a very small amount of the population. It's a very small amount. I mean, we're talking normies coming in to crypto. And to enroute these people, it's not going to be hard. Because if you have something like Mocha, right, it looks just like a banking app or any app that they've used before. It's very intuitive. So the TCY, the value of that, you have to think of the future growth potential. And just on what Thorchain has done already, just on swaps of alone, every year has been exponential growth. So listen, I don't know. I don't know what the swap volume is. Rune is $1 something. TCY will start as 10 cents. It's going to do what it's going to do. You have to decide. I encourage you guys try to model it because I don't know. But as you alluded to, Cal, look at Binance's volume. Look at Coinbase's volume. Okay, just saying. And we have a new vote coming right now, the Mimir. It's close to passing. We're going to be reducing the minimum slip fee for swaps. I think it's I don't know if it's 7 or 8 basis points. I think it's 8, but it's going down to 5, which means we'll capture more volume. Sure, we may lose, right, fees generated, but if we have more volume, well, then that cushions that. So there's a magic number there. We'll figure out what that is.
Yeah. And a lot of people talk about, total addressable market. And I think that's where you look at, Binance, Coinbase, and these other, centralized exchanges. And you say, well, and by the way, all of those are growing. So the total addressable market of Thorchain is what centralized exchanges are doing now and their growth. And then I would even say, look at TradFi, look at, the stock market, look at tokenization of assets. And I would say you could also look at, bridges on other chains, look at how much usage those get. And then, for Rujira more specifically, when there's collateralized lending, look at other collateralized lending protocols like MakerDAO that have gotten, extremely large and do a lot of volume, or look at Aave and others. So what I love about Thorchain is I think there are so many different total addressable markets, and then it's kind of the aggregate of those and then the future growth potential of those. And that's how you can kind of, model out the future of Rune and Thorchain. And then you just have kind of this like bulletproof swapping protocol that backstops everything. So that's what has always excited me about Thorchain, is that the total addressable market is massive, growing, and not showing any signs of slowing down. You mentioned a little bit about Ruji, and I know like our main point in this conversation is TCY. Just it's obviously the hot topic. But when you think of what excites you the most about Thorchain's future, what kind of comes to mind? Is it Ruji? Is it anything specific on the app layer? What kind of, or is it maybe something unrelated to that, and like XRP and Solana, adding new chains, and some of the other stuff that's being worked on?
Yeah, I mean, good question. I mean, the reason why I mentioned Rujira is because as a TCY holder, you're going to capture that volume too. Okay. So yeah, Rujira gets me really excited. Mocha gets me really excited. What gets even me more excited are the new things that people are developing that I'm not even aware about. I discovered Mocha when I went to Rare Evo in Las Vegas last year, and I got to meet Zay. Amazing guy. Awesome. Legend. Dude, Mexicans are amazing. I love Mexicans in crypto. I'm a total fan of those people. But listen, what is Thorchain? Thorchain is just infrastructure. It's permissionless infrastructure that people can build upon. And that's all it is. It's a highway. Okay. And it's taking a fee from every swap that happens, a pretty small fee, but it is becoming more efficient, it's optimized, faster block times. It's getting more chains, so more roads, I guess you could say, more routes. It is the web connecting all blockchains together. That has been the problem just a few years ago. That was a horrible problem. If you wanted to connect to any other blockchain, you had to surrender custody to a centralized exchange, get this IOU representation, which is just a data point, right? In a ledger, it's meaningless. It's not the asset. And that's how you had to do that. Now we are literally connecting every single ecosystem to every single ecosystem. And now what's going to happen is now the world's going to be able to figure out what asset is going to be what assets, I should say, are going to be the best assets, right? It's like what's going on right now, Cal. It's like a Precambrian explosion of innovation. Cardano, BNB, AVAX, XRP, whatever. It doesn't matter. Okay, there's different ecosystems and tribes. They all have different features, points, and all that stuff. What chains are going to be the best? Now, thanks to technology like Thorchain, Maya Protocol, Rujira, we're now going to figure that out because people can now go from ecosystem to another ecosystem because everyone's been stuck on islands, right? There's no way to get to their islands in a direct method except, surrendering custody. So the exciting thing is we are still so stupid early. This is incredibly early where we're at right now. Everyone here probably listening knows you and understands crypto very well. There are still so many people who don't, and a lot of them are in government. And when they figure it out, it's going to be big. It's going to be big. I mean, and like Kenton said earlier, right, on centralized exchanges, imagine if they ran Thorchain in the back end. Way better to do, right? I mean, you basically remove the legal liability and regulation of custodying other people's assets, and you just charge a fee on top of that. You just on-ramp new users, right? And that reduces so much overhead. So I don't want to just keep blabbering on, but there's so many 0 to 1s here. They're everywhere. There's 0 to 1s everywhere. It's just better in every single way. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's just better in every way, and you have the kind of baseline features that everyone else is offering. Then you layer on the decentralization of it. And I like what you said about centralized exchanges kind of catching on, starting to use Thorchain in the background and not even really thinking about it. I think there was a moment I think maybe 1 or 2 years ago where some people were tracking centralized exchange cold wallet addresses and seeing that some funds were getting moved through Thorchain when they were resettling their books. And I think that's a huge potential market that we don't even really think about. And then you look at things like the ledger integration, and the other integrations that are out there for these big wallets, where the end user literally has never heard of Thorchain. They're just like, yeah, I have some Bitcoin in my ledger and I wish it was Ethereum, for whatever reason, and want to swap it. And then Ledger adds a button that says swap your Bitcoin to Ethereum, and the user just clicks 2 buttons and it happens. And in the background, Thorchain just processed a swap. Rune was earned, by the protocol, as a reward. And then also, that's volume for TCY holders. That's, also affiliate revenue for Ledger. So now you've got, deeply aligned incentives across the board, whether it's the integrator, or the protocol itself. So I just think, when you take all these 0 to 1s and you stack them, that's kind of the beauty of Thorchain in the long run.
Yeah, and integrations like yourself, you know what I mean? And kudos to you. You're obviously a very intelligent person. You understand where this is going. You're getting ahead of it. And I love that. I want more people to understand that the integration, like, what's the downside of integrating Thorchain? I don't know. I mean, you're getting affiliate fees. Like, for the first time, wallets now can make money. Beforehand, they had to do all these crazy tricks to try and be profitable. But now you can offer a service that was once only available on centralized exchanges. You can allow people to swap assets. And then that's just the very beginning, right? Rujira is thinking about adding a plugin to give the average wallet the sex-like functionality. Loans, perps, trade accounts, money markets,
Order books.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things. And I have I am like, before, I think I've heard you talk about, I think you're in stock market dividend portfolio. I've had the same thing. Yeah. And I've completely, and you know what it was? There was one one moment, and I never put another penny in the stock market. I had the Robinhood app, okay? And do you remember the whole? Well, you
I know where this. I know where this is going.
Yeah, the GameStop thing. I was not interested in buying GameStop or nothing like that or selling it. I didn't even know it was going to happen. I wasn't part of like that whole group. But just the fact that Robinhood said you can't buy this, I was just like, oh, I'm done. I'm over. And I never put another penny into the stock market. In fact, now I've liquidated everything and I've gone full crypto. And until stocks are tokenized on the blockchain, that's it. You know what I mean? So,
well, and that's something Rujira has even mentioned. I think I saw that somewhere. Tokenizing real world assets.
Yeah. So, dude, like, okay, what you just said right there, just that. Forget everything else we said. Just that alone, mind blowing. I mean, to the every listener right now. I mean, how do you even comprehend the amount of unbelievable innovation and 0 to 1s that are happening right now? Okay, like, the thing that because when I hear myself speak, it's like I'm trying. It almost sounds like I'm being overly dramatic, or maybe I'm romanticizing or adding embellishments. Like, this is just quite literal. This is just first principle logical stuff. It blows my mind. And I'm not trying to oversell it. It's just like, tell me where I'm wrong. Because I'm not interested in someone like stroking my ego. Like, tell Thorchain, tell Rujira, tell Mocha, tell every cross-chain interface, every wallet, like, where are we wrong? Like, the future is so clear and it's happening in real time. Like, everyone right now listening to this conversation who is an active participant with your own interface, like, you are literally experiencing history in real time. This is going to change everything.
Yeah. It's wild. Yeah. And again, it is wild. And you just kind of, take that lens again of total addressable market. When you add in all these other things that are being built, like, real world assets, I mean, that's trillions of dollars in TAM that gets added to Thorchain. So again, I think I like that you keep saying, 0 to 1s, because then I think, okay, 0 to 1s, but then you also stack them. And there's all these different ones that are happening by different teams that are all building. It's kind of like that. I feel, especially with the Rujira layer, it reminds me of when Ethereum, went from being, the internet computer machine to being, the tokenization layer where, like, I remember it kind of felt like it happened overnight, but like hundreds and then thousands of teams started building in all sorts of directions. And then we saw Ethereum mature from being essentially just like one little thing to being like thousands of things getting built simultaneously in many different directions. So I feel like Thorchain is kind of in a similar moment right now where, we've been kind of on this linear path, and not to say that the mission statement of decentralizing swapping across chains is small, but when you start to look at it as, well, now it's that, and you've got 1,000 teams building in all these different directions, things get, even more exciting than they already were. To take a step back and look at, Rune, and then with TCY coming, I asked Slam Bammer last week this same question. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. With the introduction of TCY, what do you think the average, say, person who wants exposure to all these exciting things happening on Thorchain, what do you think the average person should get exposed to? Like, you can, when TCY is live, you can buy TCY and just, kind of earn yield and sit back, or you can buy Rune. And then once you buy Rune, there's different things you can do with it. For example, providing a bond to the protocol. What do you think the average user looks like if they want that Thorchain exposure?
Yeah, so you have to, if you're that person, you have to figure out like what you're comfortable with, right? If you want to stay liquid, and be able to liquidate whenever you need, if you feel like you might be hard on cash soon, then maybe TCY is the way to go, because you could liquidate that immediately. If you're someone who's in for the medium to long haul, buying Rune straight up and bonding it to a node provider is the way to go. But you have to understand, if you do that, and all node operators have different parameters and different things that they offer, but your Rune will be locked up and you will have to churn out, which happens every 3 days, subject to change, by the way, but it's been 3 days for a while now. So you have to figure out, I would say, your time horizon, what your financial situation is, and then, how much you understand. And first and foremost, don't invest a cent into Thorchain until you understand how it works. Do the work, please. There's so many great guides out there. Some things are a little outdated right now, but it's only like 10% outdated. I mean, you get the gist of what Thorchain is and represented, or, just keep listening to, these wonderful interviews that you do. Cause dude, you bring the alpha. You're friggin' great, man. I've been watching your stuff. You're awesome.
Appreciate
But
it.
we have spaces every weekend. Or ask a question right now if you don't understand, but please, before you put money into anything, just understand how it works, because Thorchain is a very complicated beast. It works like butter now, but that wasn't always the case. Back in, we called it Chaos Net days for a reason. It was very exciting. And dude, it's hard. It is hard to get just to do a swap, to go to Bitcoin to Litecoin, just like the same UTXO framework. That is very complicated. There's swap logic involved. There's block times. There's, oh my Lord, there's, all these different consensus, things you have to do, Bifrost attestations and all this stuff. It's crazy. It's crazy. So understand before you put any money into it.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, well, we are kind of in the last 10 minutes of the show. So we've had the Threadcast running, and then also a bunch of comments have come in from X with some good questions. So let's run into some audience questions. You can take them as long as or as short as you want. Yeah, so first one is from Lord Shah on Inleo. What are the benefits of holding TCY tokens, and how will they generate revenue for holders?
Once a day, every 24 hours, you will get your portion of 10% of the total revenue earned by Thorchain in the form of runes. So once a day, I don't know what time it is, but your rune amount will increase, assuming there's swap volume, which there always is. So the benefit of holding TCY is that you'll just keep getting rune. Now, it doesn't compound because it's just, you have a static amount of TCY, but there are people in Rujira talking about maybe making an auto compound staking feature thing, which would be really cool. And maybe even having a thing where you can take your rewards and just, if you're a bond provider, you can just put them right in your bond, which is also cool. But yeah, that's basically it.
And kind of on a similar line from Khan, where do you realistically see TCY's price heading if revenue keeps scaling? Do you see it going beyond $1? And you can speculate as much or as little as you want. I know people get, a little funny about price speculation.
Yeah, well, listen, if you look at if Thorchain accomplishes all its goals, and like Rujira is amazing, Mocha, and maybe all these new primitives, and we get new integrations, new chains, I mean, it's going to be commensurate with the swap volume on Thorchain. So you have to think for yourself, where do you think that's going to go? $1 is not a cap. Okay, $1 is just an arbitrary number we assigned to make people whole, right? On terms of the block height, which the dollarized value of their debt or the assets they had, excuse me. So it can go much higher than that. There is no upper height, you know what I mean? So 10 cents, I think, is an amazing entry, incredible entry. Yeah. So the one thing, like I try not to put too much mental energy into figuring out where price is going to go. I just try to focus on execution. And if there's one message I'd have for all the developers, we have now a window in the history of time where we have a little freedom. We have to work so hard. Thorchain devs, Rujira devs, Mocha devs, and Maya Protocol devs, yourself as an interface, let's work hard. Let's all work together. Let's push this thing to the limit. Let's bring people on chain, custodying their own assets, get SWAT and volume going. Let's siphon people away from centralized exchange and make crypto what it was always meant to be. So,
yeah, I very much agree with that. And it's, I keep tying back to, total addressable market. All of the interfaces, all of the users, all of the devs, all the different teams in this space. I love the cross-chain space in terms of everyone's trying to raise the tide and understands that, the pie that we have is so small. And I feel like what you see in cross-chain is so different than other spaces in crypto, where people aren't just trying to get a bigger slice of the pie that's there. Everybody recognizes that you're looking at Binance, you're looking at Coinbase, you're looking at TradFi, and you see that the TAM out there is massive. So it's like, let's all work together. Let's just grow this whole pie. And who cares what size my slices right now? The whole pie is going to get way bigger. So it's a mindset thing that you can feel when you're in this space, and it's something I love about cross-chain and Thorchain, and Thorchain has always been that way. It's ever since the multi-chain chaos net days when I started getting involved, just buying Rune, and way back then I was buying Rune and putting it in I think it was called Rune Vault, just to earn some yield. And it was fascinating to see all the different teams kind of starting to pop up. And then obviously where we are today is crazy. Next question comes from Soda. Will the start of trading be announced ahead, or do insiders get first dibs?
No. There's a
question.
There's a set time, and that's on Alex. He's posted that there's no insider trading. It's just this is the time it's going live, and that's what it is. So no insider trading. And yeah, one thing I should mention real quick. Gosh, I want to make sure I get other questions, but I forgot to mention the TCY module, unclaimed TCY. All the revenue. So if you have like 100 million TCY that's not claimed yet or whatever it is, all that revenue just buys more TCY, right? Because we want to make people as whole as fast as possible, like that $1 limit or whatever they're comfortable liquidating. So there's going to be tons of buy pressure on TCY. Maybe something counterintuitive from my perspective happens. There's a lot of sell pressure. I don't know, but no, there's no insider trading stuff. That's not how we roll. And plus, Alex is the one who made Proposition 6, and that guy made the fairest launch ever when it comes to my protocol. So you can trust it's going to be legit.
Yeah. And what he mentioned is, the goal here, and you just mentioned it again, is to get ThorFi holders paid back. Like the goal here is not to launch a new token and capitalize on a new market. This is like a recovery plan for people who obviously got stuck in the protocol. So it's meant to be a fair launch. It's meant to be beneficial to, whoever's getting the TCY, which is obviously all the ThorFi claimers. And I just think that there's, and obviously, it's kind of like the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Like there's a handful of people on X that are just like shit posting constantly and being very loud about how they're pissed off at Thorchain. So I think there's a lot of like people that question the legitimacy or are at least kind of negative about the entire idea, around TCY and are kind of trying to poke holes in it. Not that that's what Soda's question is. I think Soda's question is very fair. Will we know when TCY goes live? I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about other people that say, TCY is just another, way for Thorchain to release something like ThorFi that takes advantage of its users.
In terms of the negative stuff, like, we take a reputation. When you make something that doesn't work, you take a reputational hit, and it is what it is. But in fairness to Thorchain, everything we've ever made has been thoroughly audited by impartial teams. All the code is open source. So everyone has to take a little accountability. Like, I've suffered financially too. Okay. 100%. But I blame myself always if I make a mistake. And that's a very important character trait. You know what I mean? But despite that, we're definitely interested in making people whole. And I mean, this doesn't really happen in a lot of protocols. When like a protocol does something and dude, it's like, that's it. Sayonara. We're done. You know what I mean?
Most devs are just like, sorry, or don't even say sorry. They just disappear. They delete their X handle.
I'm sorry. You're poor. Bye.
That's what it is. You're poor. I'm rich. I did fine, but yeah.
Thanks for your liquidity.
Absolutely. And Thorchain's just not like that. Again, like this cross-chain space, like it's just, there is a mindset here with people in Thorchain that it is, we have a much bigger vision of what the future is meant to be. And even when we started this, you talked about why you got into Thorchain, and the vision is so much bigger than even just money and transactions and being able to trade across chain. It's more of a and I think there's different reasons that people are in, but it's more of a freedom thing, or for Alux, it's a very much a freedom thing where he doesn't agree with a lot of things that happen in TradFi. So I just think that the vision is so grand. And people are focused in that way.
What are we trying to do? What are we trying to do? A lot of this is self-preservation, guys. Up until literally now, we've had to live under a fiat regime that has been abused. All the pain, suffering, misery, abjection, disease, poverty, filth, war, all the stuff that we've had to encounter as a species. We now have one opportunity to now emancipate the next two generations. We can't take care of the third. That will be the responsibility of the next two. But we have this one opportunity. And that's why you see amazing people like Runtard training other node operators, his own competition, to be better than himself. Where do you see this? You see this only in this ecosystem and around with people like yourself and Rujira and Maya and other people. We are literally trying to solve the hardest problem and once and for all liberate our species so we can take this to the next level. Because and you can see the state of the world. Things are dicey right now. I could, when things were more calm, I would forecast out like 2, 3, 4, 5 years, my investment thesis, right? I can't even tell you what's going to happen next week, but it doesn't matter. We have to buckle down, work hard, and deliver. So
yeah, absolutely. And this will be the last question. It's kind of fun. From Khan, if Thorchain had a mascot, what would it be and why, just for fun? And obviously, you've got Thor and Thorchain. Let's say if you can't pick Thor, what would Thorchain's mascot be?
I love the Rising Phoenix right now. I love the Rising Phoenix. Someone posted the AI generated thing of like a rune symbol on there with a Rising Phoenix coming from the ashes. I think it speaks to our strength, our resiliency, and our commitment to achieving our goals. And that's what I would want it to be. There's a lot of Nordic, obviously, vernacular that goes with it. But, what are we? We're really just ordinary people. I'm just an ordinary person, and you're an ordinary person, and we're all working together. Not one of us is smart enough to build Thorchain, but with all our expertise, all our life experiences, the aggregated potential of what we can accomplish is truly mind-blowing. And to be honest, there's not many of us. People listening to this, you are in a very small minority. But we have a goal to do. We have a mission to accomplish. And even though we are few in number, I believe we are equal to the task.
Yeah, I love that. If you had one thing to leave people with, whether it's about Thorchain or just in general, what would you leave them with?
All right, check it out. So one day we're all going to be old, right? And people who are not born, we will have conversations with them. So one thing that I want to foresee myself, hopefully, is I'm old. I'm in the twilight years of my life, about to kick the bucket, make room for the next generation. And I want the younger kids to make fun of us and saying, like, how did it work? What do you mean there was this thing called a bank and you gave them your money and you had to ask permission to withdraw it and you couldn't withdraw all of it and they wanted to know what you were going to use your money for? And what do you mean there was this thing called the stock market and it was closed from, after 5 p.m. on the certain time zone? And what do you mean there was this different, like all these different economic primitives and you couldn't do this and you couldn't do that and you could be censored? Your bank account could be frozen if you had the wrong political ideology. Like, how did that work? How did society function? And then you just look at them and say, yeah, it really didn't function. And that's why we changed it. We changed it for you. So that's what I think.
I love that. That's awesome. That's awesome. I really appreciate you doing this and all the things you do for Thorchain. You're probably one of the loudest spokesmen for the entire ecosystem, and you do it very well and very eloquently. So thanks for doing this, and thanks for doing everything you do. And I think we all just can collectively agree that we appreciate you.
Appreciate you, sir. Thanks, everybody, and thanks to everyone listening. Let's kick some ass. Let's win. Let's win.
Let's do it. All right, we'll catch you guys later this week and for the launch tomorrow.
Later, guys.